I put a spell on you.
Welcome to I Put a Spell on You. Eddie Hurst's Wonderfull Discoverie of Witches podcast. The show using spells, magic, and best guesses from the pre-1700s to help solve all our problems.
I put a spell on you.
Hey everybody, it's me, Eddie Hurst. I'm in an old library. I'm looking around for some spell books. I'm having a look to do a bit of research for the show, so welcome to it. This is, of course, I Put a Spell on You, the show where I invite comedians, performers, artists to bring their very modern problems that I use ye olde magic to solve. And this week, we have the fantastic comedian Jake Donaldson. Jake Donaldson is a comedian from and based in Newcastle who performs across the country with a mix of storytelling and one-liners, often revolving around his life with a visual impairment. In 2024, he was a finalist in the BBC New Comedy Awards, and his show Spectable, about his relationship with disability, his dad and his diminishing vision, received acclaim alongside being nominated for the Neurodiverse Review Awards. Jake and I actually started performing comedy whilst at uni in Leeds together, and it was great to sit down and chat to him about his work, the busy year he's had, and his changing relationship to disability, as well as his upcoming show with the, quite frankly, incredible title, The Fifth Weezer. Shh. Yes, sorry, okay.
What are you doing over there?
Just looking for a book. We also talk about when he got...
Sounds like you're doing a podcast.
No, I'm not recording a podcast. I promise I'm not. Don't tell them. We also talk about when he got fobbed off by a ghost and receiving a vision from God, so... don't worry, we've got plenty of spiritual stuff in the chat too. It's a very fun conversation that I'm looking forward to jumping into, as well as his spell request to play the bass guitar a little better, which feels achievable, and also to be liked by everyone in the world, which we'll do our best for that one. Just before we get into the podcast, I did want to mention a few things. Actually, something that would be great if you can help out on is I'm running a survey for a thing at the Edinburgh Fringe where I'm trying to find out who the best witch at the Edinburgh Fringe is. Now that's a pop culture witch, that's a folklore witch, it's not real witches because they've been through enough already, but you'll see in the episode description there's a survey form that I'd really appreciate if you can just take a minute, fill it out. It doesn't even need to be a minute, just fill in who you think, and they will be invited to take part in the grand finale of The Witch's Witch in the show live from the witch trials on the 17th/18th of August at 12:30 with Bedlam Theatre at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's like a one-off thing. I'm really excited to do it, but I just wanted to let you know about that now. So let's see, is this... No, it's not that book there. My show, Eddie Hurst's Wonderfull Discoverie of Witches in the Countie himself, which this podcast is part of, is at the Edinburgh Fringe next week. It's at the Assembly, Roxy downstairs at 2:20pm, and you can get tickets in the link there. There's also a code for locals, so if you're a local, you can get a ticket for £6.50. And also, I'm announcing it here first. You're getting a real scoop.
Are you doing a New York impression? And you're not recording a podcast?
No, I'm not recording a podcast. Eddie Hurst's Wonderfull Discoverie of Witches in the Countie himself is going on tour this year from the September, so we're starting, at least confirmed, there's another date that might be a little earlier, starting September the 19th at Durham Gala, and then we're going all the way through to the 21st of November, which is at Edgehill Arts Centre, Ormskirk. In between there, we have Taunton Brewhouse, Exeter Phoenix, Leeds Carriage Works, Harrogate Theatre, Norwich Stage 2 Theatre, Beggars Theatre in Millham, the Barnsley Civic, St Helens Library, and probably at Thatto Library again like I was last year, which is lovely, and the Macready Theatre in Rugby, and there are a few more on the way to being announced. Arena Theatre in Wolverhampton. They're all available on my website or on my link tree, which is in the episode description that you can see below.
Are you plugging a tour whilst in the library?
No?
Oh, alright then. But shh.
Sorry. So, we're about to go into the episode, so please do like, subscribe, check out the things that I mentioned, and I'm just about to come to... this was the book I was looking for. So, it's a book that reveals things about yourself that may also be mentioned in the context of the episode. I don't think there's anything actually to report, but let's just give it a little look. It's a bit dusty. Oh, what does it say? Oh, okay. What do I do with this information? That's the kind of your thing to figure out. Yeah, fair enough. And as I go through the Midnight Library, I make it to the meeting room that I booked out so I can talk at a normal volume now and oh, who could it be? Why, as I live and breathe, it's none other than...
It's me, Jake Donaldson.
Hello, Jake Donaldson. I've never done that before in the history of the podcast.
I didn't know whether or not you wanted me to join in.
Thank you so much for joining me, Jake Donaldson.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Eddie Hurst.
Can you describe yourself for the listeners?
Yeah.
Not in a... I realise as I say that, you can do an audio description of your appearance if you want, but I mean it more in the sake of, like, who your identity is.
No, that's fine. I mean, I could do both. My name's Jake. I'm a stand-up comedian and regional treasure. I'm a white man in my early 30s. And I've got brown hair and a beard and big thick glasses, and I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm also I'm visually impaired, which is sort of a big part of what I talk about on stage. I'm also a Geordie, and I'm from the northeast of England, and I live up here, and it's very exciting, and I like it. And I also went to university with you, Eddie Hurst.
Yeah, that's top of my list. Started at uni, knew each other at university, which is a great tidbit that in my head I've made loads of questions, and I'm very excited to find out whether these are actually of interest to anyone beyond ourselves. So we'll find that out together.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, we started doing comedy. Well, I don't know what people measure starting. What that means is a very weird thing in this industry that seems to be quite liquid, especially for the sake of entering competitions and things. But we met at the Comedy Society at university. In Leeds, the city's so nice, as Joby McGean used to say. They named it 5 times. Leeds. Love that joke.
It's weird that sort of when you start comedy thing, because we were doing student comedy 10 or 12 years ago when we were at university, but then I sort of didn't really do any comedy then after that for a really long time, apart from sort of the odd... I just did like open mics just to keep my toe in, just because I enjoyed it for fun kind of thing. And then I didn't really start doing it seriously, or like taking comedy seriously and trying to do proper circuit gigs and getting paid for it and stuff, until after I moved back to Newcastle, and the pandemic sort of made me want to do comedy again. So I sort of made a proper effort, and now I'm doing it professionally. So it's sort of, as part of me is like, why didn't I have this drive like when I was younger and had more chutzpah?
That was one of the things that I think when we were at uni that I always like. I had a lot of respect for you as a performer, and I still do. It's not like now the handbrake's off. I hate it all. But one of the things that I think was like different in what you did compared to a lot of us there, and maybe I don't know. You were trying different things. Like every time that you'd do a set, like I remember for a while you were doing sort of a kind of Nick Helm poetry thing for a while. And there was, but just the like. I think that's such an important part of doing anything creative, but I think particularly in comedy, having like to do something that's like completely different than the last thing you did, that's completely stylistically different, to be like, well, I wonder what this is like.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting that you see it that way, because that's not how I remember my early days in comedy. And I remember thinking I really respected you, and I thought you were the best comedian in our little university group, because you were doing stuff that was so interesting and different, and like I still quote bits of your material from when we were teenagers. Like,
can you remember any of it? Because I could really do with.
I remember you had a really good routine, and I say really good. This is like really, really good in my memory from 12 years ago. But it was about how you were a character that could shoot worms out of your hands or something like that.
I love that bit. Yeah,
it was really fun. And I remember specifically the phrase that I quote all the time, like when I'm hanging out with other people from when we were at uni, or sometimes just to my girlfriend if she doesn't understand the reference. It's the phrase, "Let's take it out on the bankers." I really respected what you were doing, because it was like that weird sort of like I don't know what you would call it, like whether you'd self-refer to it as surreal or what, but like it's so different to anything that I do, which is very, straight stand-up, kind of explaining things about my life sort of thing. And I remember thinking, God, it must be stressful to go out with something like that. And at least I sort of vaguely know that my thing might be a bit relatable to someone in the room, whereas no one's relating to shooting worms out of your hands.
Yeah, and I found that out really quickly, actually, Jake. That was a real, that was such a fun, yeah, thank you. And also, if anyone listening does want to watch that, I think it's immortalised in some, as all early stand-up is, in like a Chortle student comedy clip.
Yeah, mine's one of mine's still on there, and like mine's really bad. For some reason I was doing like a Batman voice on stage for a period. Like, I don't know why, but I went on stage for like, it was probably like 3 or 4 gigs where I decided that my new persona was just going to be I was just going to deliver everything like this.
I'm not, you know what, I'm not against it.
And it's really weird. So you watch the video and it's like 5 minutes of bad stand-up from like a 19-year-old boy who's doing a weird like Batman voice all the way through, and I did poems about being depressed.
I really think there's something in if you come in, like you hire a very expensive car to arrive in, and you like are acting like you're the hoi polloi, saying hello to everyone, being so gracious that you've been invited to the fundraiser, and then just as the show starts, you mysteriously run off, and then you go on stage with the deep voice. But you do have to do the bit at the top. That's the really important bit, is as the audience are walking in, you just sort of look like, oh, it's famous billionaire Jake Donaldson. I don't know what it's like starting out doing comedy now. But I do feel like when we started and when we were like looking at doing it, it was very like mostly gong shows, mostly competitions that you did, and then also like any high profile stuff was like where it goes out. Like there's so much sort of you being very shit, like in a very public way.
I do a lot of work with newer acts now because I'm part of an organisation based up in Newcastle called Felt Nout, and we're a cooperative and a community interest company made of comedians in Newcastle and the northeast, and we put on events. We put on gigs and we give work to professional comedians who live up here, so that we don't have to travel to London all the time for work. But also we do loads of like stuff to help new acts develop, and I think we've encouraged a lot of people. We've given a lot of people their first paid work, and we've given a lot of people, we do all these workshops, and you know, we run new material gigs and new act nights and competitions and stuff like that. So I work with a lot of new acts, and I think I've heard from several of them that sort of they wouldn't have started doing stand-up if it wasn't for the help that we were able to provide. And there was nothing like that when we started. You know, I mean, I suppose you and I had the comedy society at university, but if you're not in a position to go to university, or you just don't want to go to university, you don't have that sort of framework around you of other people doing comedy. You sort of have to work it out for yourself and potentially make some friends on the circuit. But that's, you know, sometimes difficult for some people. And I think, you know, now that things like Felt Now exist, and there are other examples around the country, I think that new acts now have much more of a framework of other new acts around them to sort of help pull each other up and make each other feel better, and kind of it feels, although it's more competitive, my understanding, speaking as someone who's not a brand new act now, is that it's slightly more sort of friendly or camaraderie sort of based in a way. And I mean, I'm saying this, I'm not, you know, I'm new to pro comedy. I'm a new pro act, but I'm not a new comedian. I'm not new to the circuit.
I think when we started doing comedy, and when you started looking at doing comedy initially, like, it wasn't about your like being visually impaired, which obviously you can talk about whatever you want. You don't have to be defined by this. But I do think that there's been a change maybe in, like, your show Spectable was obviously about your experience with sight loss. Do you find that the way audiences treat you talking about a disability compared to talking about any other topic, and when you go on stage and you present yourself as that, do you find that the audience response is different to what it was previously?
It's interesting, yeah. So I suppose for listeners who might not know, I'm visually impaired, but I'm not blind. So I have a white cane that I use, but I don't need it all the time, and I still have some functional vision. I can sort of pass for being sighted, I suppose, if that's a thing. And my eyesight's gotten worse over the years, and the reason I didn't really talk about it before kind of 3 or 4 years ago is because, one, I didn't really feel confident in writing material that was funny about it. And two, I spent a really long time trying to sort of not identify as disabled because I was a bit embarrassed about it. And so I grew up with my dad is disabled. He had a brain hemorrhage in his early 20s. And so all my life, my dad's been disabled. And I sort of saw how difficult things were for him because of his disability, and kind of I got picked on at school for having a disabled dad and stuff like that. And so I kind of wanted to avoid self-identifying as disabled for a really long time. I just convinced myself I was just a person who had bad eyes. And then sort of through therapy and sort of other bits and pieces of self-actualization and things that I've done in the background, I sort of started... And also my vision got a bit worse, and I started having to go to the hospital about it, and realised that it's something that I am comfortable sort of exploring. And through doing that show, I became sort of more comfortable talking about it on stage as well. And I find that when I used to... Because it's not... Although I didn't used to talk about my eyesight very much, I did used to talk about other sort of problems that I had in my life. I talked about my mental health quite a lot in the early days, and all of the comedy I've ever done really has been about myself. It's never. I'm not really an observational comedian in the. I mean, it's hard to be an observational comedian when you can't see, but like, but I'm not really an observationalist. I'm not really a surrealist. I'm not really anything other than. I only really know how to be funny if I'm talking about myself and my experiences and telling stories and that kind of thing. So I found that audiences seem to be more comfortable laughing at mental health related stuff than they are at disability related stuff. And it's not to say that they don't laugh at the stuff when I'm talking about my eyesight, but obviously it's less... I suppose it's less relatable for an audience of sighted people to listen to 20 minutes of me talking about what it's like to go to a blind sports camp, or to to not be able to drive or something like that. And so what I found most audiences, there are ways to get into it, and there are ways to make it relatable, or there are ways to make it so funny that it sort of bypasses them being concerned about laughing at it. But there is definitely an element of people, some audiences kind of go, ooh, I don't know whether or not we can laugh at this. And it's really weird. Like, obviously, if it was a non-visually impaired person making those jokes, you shouldn't really laugh at it. It's probably not very funny. But also, there are jokes that I do about visual impairment and about blind people that I would laugh at if a sighted person made them. But I, as a visually impaired person, I think audiences sometimes, even if a disabled person is talking about disability, I think they sometimes still get a little bit, or able-bodied audiences at least, still get a little bit kind of like, they clench a bit and they kind of get a bit
it's really interesting. Because I guess as well it's that nervousness of like being in a group laughing at something that I think this is funny, but if I laugh out loud and other people don't, what's gonna, that as like a trying to think of it in a way that's not them being absolute ableists. But no, don't talk about disability. Boo.
I sometimes I don't help myself though, because if I do say something that isn't a joke and then someone laughs at it, I will just point them out and I'll point them and call them an ableist or something like that. Even though I don't really mean it, I just think it's funny to do that. I'd like like, I mean, every disabled person in the world who does comedy has like called a heckler, like said that something they've done is a hate crime or something, like, that's like one of those, saying, oh, that's a hate crime actually is like one of the go-to sort of new hack bits of stand-up that you can do as a disabled comic. But like, I'll absolutely do it because it works.
Funny that you're saying it's hack, because whilst there are more people of different backgrounds and of different abilities on bills, it's still not the norm for every bill to have somebody, even just like somebody with a visual impairment or somebody with a wheelchair user. It's not like every show you're going to be guaranteed that there's people with different backgrounds than the like heteronormative cisgendered white man. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's certainly getting better, and there are a lot more gigs that are more inclusive these days, and I really love seeing that. And I love doing gigs where I'm on with other disabled acts, which I often don't feel like I'm booked because I'm disabled, which is good. Like, I want to be booked on merit. And often I think because I'm still fairly unknown on the circuit to some promoters, they don't necessarily even know that I'm disabled when I get booked. But because it's always fun to turn up with a white cane and glasses, and then the promoter to panic. You can see them panic and be like, "Oh shit, can we do this?" And it's like, "Yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry." Like,
how do you find traveling to gigs? Is it? I mean, I guess it's the same as you traveling anywhere in your life, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, do you ever ask for like access request things or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes. I'm in a, like, I don't want to say I'm in a lucky position, but I'm, as disabilities go, I've been reasonably lucky in that my visual impairment isn't the most severe kind of visual impairment that you can have. I can mostly get around independently, with the aid of, things like being sensible, and I use my cane when I need to. Occasionally I need to ask for access requirements and things, so like, I don't normally need to be walked onto the stage, but in some venues, what I always do if I'm going to a venue I've never been to before is I'll ask, unless it's really obvious, like, it's a room in a pub and it's the one room and you can walk around and work out where the stage is. If it's a theatre or something that's like, backstage in theatres can always be quite difficult for me because it's dark, sure, and there's a lot of cables and things lying around. So the nature of my visual impairment means that in the darker the dimmer the light, the harder I find it to see, but also the more bright the light, the harder I find it to see as well. Okay. So my vision sort of works reasonably well in quite a narrow range of lighting states. So I often need to ask someone to like walk me through a backstage area, or so when I did a TV show last year, and I had to have the sort of stage manager shine a torch on the floor while I was walking in, through the backstage area, so that I could sort of see a little bit better what was in front of me, because otherwise it just looked like walking into a dark, sure, empty sort of space to me, and I would have bumped into a load of lights, and I had this terrifying sort of anxiety that I was going to trip over a cable and then like pull all of the electricity off and like shut down all the cameras accidentally, and it would be a whole I'd ruin the whole recording of the TV show. So
I'm glad that didn't happen, but at the same time, what a spectacle. Like everybody busticating it, trip, grab the curtain, everything's falling.
But I'm also still quite embarrassed about doing that, because it's still relatively recently that I've sort of accepted that I need assistance for some things, because I've also spent the majority of my life kind of muddling through with fixes that I've come up with myself for how to deal with things I can't do, because I've got enough vision that's functioning to be able to sort of muddle through a lot of stuff. I've kind of learned hacks, I suppose, that I've taught myself, and it's only sort of from speaking to my eye specialist and the RNIB and a guy called an acclaim, who's an eye care liaison officer who works in tandem with the two of those. It's only through them that I've sort of learned that there are sort of legitimate bits of help that I can ask for, that I am entitled to ask for, that I sort of previously have told myself they were for people who are much more blind than I am. Because I think people don't understand that I'm really passionate about kind of raising awareness that sight loss and visual impairment are different to blindness, and sort of people think that if you're visually impaired you can't see anything, or you can see barely anything, or it's either that or you're fine. And it's the majority, it's something, I should learn the figure really, but it's something like 75% of people with visual impairment have some functioning vision, and I think most people don't understand that. And I think a lot of people often they see me walking around without my cane sometimes if the lighting is okay, or if I'm on a route that I know really well and I know where the curbs are and stuff, or like certain comedy venues, if I've been there a lot, I know how to walk to and from the stage without the cane or something like that. And I think people sometimes go, oh well, he's, I don't know, lying about his blindness, or he's not really as blind as he says he is, or whatever. Imagine how mental you would have to be to pretend to be disabled. Like why would I want to make my life more complicated? Like,
I think it's a really good point, and it's one that I think also in the show Spectable, which is a great show. There's that bit about going to a school for visually impaired people, and it's like you got bullied at the school that you were at on the regular for being visually impaired, and then you got bullied for not being visually impaired enough.
Yeah, well, that's it. I went to a mainstream school, like for normal schooling, and then I went to a visually impaired sports club, and the visually impaired sports club bullied me for not being able to see, for being able to see more than them. And then normal school, I got bullied for having an eye patch. So I was like,
but like you said, it's that thing, and I think it's the thing with most disability. It's that ableism and that internalized ableism we have. I've
had the same. I internalized a load of ableism. I think even growing up with my disabled dad and everything, it was that's the reason that I'm still uncomfortable talking about it sometimes, and it's the reason that I've only just started to explore how I associate with my disability, and I still sometimes feel like I'm cosplaying as a disabled person, because I do have a bit more independence than other disabled people have, and also I have experienced people more recently, in the last 3 years or so, saying to my face or saying to people, and then them retelling me later that that people are accusing me of I don't know what they're saying, but people have told me that they've heard people kind of, and I think it's just slightly jaded comedians who kind of, I don't know, I think they would say it about anyone who had a niche sort of individual thing that they can talk about on stage, and I think there are some comedians who wish that they had something they could talk about more than just their life or what have you, and that's a shame, because I think lots of these comedians are brilliant and I really like them, and I don't I don't want to I'm not trying to sort of have a go at anyone.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you've experienced that, but it doesn't necessarily surprise me as a thing, because most comedians are bitches.
Oh yeah, and I'm part of that group.
But also it's that thing, and I think this is
all the blind comedians. We all get together and we're all like, oh god, I wish we were fucking in wheelchairs. Then we'd we'd be able to talk about that.
But I think it's the thing of of disability, and of that that idea of levels of disability, which there are levels at which society disables people. But also, I think it's one of the things that holds a lot of folks back from neurodivergent support, at least in my experience. I know a few people that I think know that they're neurodivergent, or know that there are things that they experience that could benefit themselves, and but they won't do it, because it's that idea of oh well, it's not as bad for me, or it's not that hard for me. And it's kind of, but just because it's not that hard for you doesn't mean it has. There doesn't have to be any hardness. You could make it easy.
That's absolutely a thing that I've been coming to terms with. Is like what I was saying about this way that I've muddled through by having hacks and things. And my ECLO and my doctor have sort of said to me, and the RNAB have been really great as well. And they've sort of helped to say oh yeah, just because you're not as blind as that other person doesn't mean that you're not also entitled to things that make your life easier if you find them difficult. So and it's sometimes it's small things, but for example, I have a little telescope that I carry around with me, right? And I know that sounds mad, but it's it's not like a sort of extendy pirate telescope. It's
in my head, I know it's not this, but in my head it's like a stargazer's, an old school you can look at the stars with it. I know it's not that, but I would for the theme of the show, for us to imagine it's a steampunk
Yes, it's made of brass, and it's got sort of a little kind of gauge on the bottom of it, and like the kind of thing Galileo would have used, I imagine. But no, it's like a little. I wish I had it and I'd show you, but it's it looks like a little grey square. and you kind of...
Would you send us a photo so I can pop it on?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, the photo might be blurry, but you can have it. But yeah, it's and it's really useful. And the RNLB gave it to me and they were like, what do you really struggle with? Like, that's a sort of day-to-day struggle that you have a real problem with. And I was like, well, reading signs, or like the number on the front of the bus, or like being able to see like the menu at a restaurant, or like, if you like not the menu, sorry, but the specials board, or like, day-to-day things that I really can't do are things like that. I really can't read things if they're not really close to my face at all. And they were like, well, how do you deal with that? And I go, well, I have to ask someone to read it for me, or I have to go up really close to it, or I just have to sort of guess. And so much of my life was sort of guessing what I thought something said, which is not a way to go about it. And they went, well, why don't you just have a telescope with you, and then you can like zoom in on it.
Yeah.
Because I'd been using my phone and like zooming in on my phone and taking a picture, and then my phone's full of pictures of like where I've zoomed in on something in, like, it's loads of the time it was things like being in a pub and someone says, oh, it's my round, what do you want? And I don't know what they've got on tap at the pub, for example. And they go, what do you want? And then I go, oh, I don't know. And then they go, oh, it's just what's over there. And I can't see what's on the labels, and I can't see what they've got at all. And so I've just sort of gone, oh, get us whatever you want. I don't mind. Surprise me. And that's not the case. I want the thing that I like. So I've spent like so many times at the pub where I've just drank some random crap that I don't actually enjoy because someone's brought it back to me because I was too embarrassed to admit that I couldn't read what was on the sign. And now I can just get my little thing out and go, all right, I can see that they've got Star of Brahman or whatever, and then I'll order that. And this is like a silly little mini microcosm version of the kind of thing. But then on a grander scale, it's stuff like not being able to, like for gigs, I have to get trains everywhere because obviously I can't drive, and I can't read the signs in train stations that tell you what platform you're on, or whether there's been a delay, or if you've been changed platforms or whatever. And there are announcements in train stations for some of those things, but the announcements in train stations are terrible and they're not very accessible. Like having people tell you that you're allowed to have a little thing that makes your life easier. And I was like, but I'm not, like, in my head for years and years I told myself I wasn't proper disabled, and I think because I'm comparing myself to like my dad and also like other blind people that I know and other visually impaired people that I know, and who require much more like assistance and intervention in their lives. But that doesn't mean that I don't also require some, and so things like that. Things like the biggest one is using the white cane, which I still get embarrassed about, and I still sometimes muddle through without it. And I bump into so many things, Eddie.
I do also think that you deserve help.
Oh, thank you.
Like you deserve, but like everybody does. But also, like, I think it's so easy that you have like these things, and I think for a long time, like to relate it to me, because it's about me. I had a very similar thing with ADHD stuff. In that, for years, I was kind of like, well, maybe I deserve that because my background is fairly comfortable. Like, I was employed. The operative word there is "was," though, Eddie. I was employed many times. I was doing okay in a lot of ways, and even like the actual motivation to get support wasn't for me necessarily. It was because I was having a child.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I can't pass this on, or what if this passes on, or what if they have to live brought up by me with my chaos?
Yeah.
And even then it was like that like denying yourself support because you think that partly to look at it in a mental health way, maybe that deserving level, but also that like that ableism level of like, well, how bad do I need to get to the, and also I say that, but I've been in therapy for years for depression. So it's like, actually the ADHD it really contextualized a lot of the depression was a symptom, not the illness. Oh, I see.
That's such a good point. And I'm pretty sure I've got ADHD as well, and watching your show, which is a brilliant show as well.
Oh, stop.
Your show really helped me to contextualise some of the things I'd been feeling about my own sort of potential neurodivergence as well. And and I think it's that's another thing that I feel, and then that's compounded by the fact that I've only just come to terms with being disabled because of my eyesight. I'm it's almost like I think, is it too much disability? I can't be I'm being greedy in having another disability.
Well, I last month, I don't know if this will go into the podcast, but just to say, last month during Awareness Month of Autism, I received an autism diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
And having dyslexia, ADHD, and autism does feel like that meme of Disney when they had the Thanos glove getting everything. It's like, fucking hell. No, come on. What do I do with this? When does it just become your brain is soup? When is that the diagnosis? It appears that your brain, like most people have like a solid brain, or at least a jelly brain, and yours is actually closer to a gas.
But
okay.
But an anagram of soup is opus, so is that
is
that anything? I don't know.
I don't know.
I've also got I'm also dyslexic, so I said that so confidently, but I've got no idea if it is.
That's a real double whammy of visual impairment and dyslexia to try and read stuff.
It makes it really difficult. I'm so bad. Like, and when you consider that my job is writing, it's such a pain in the arse.
Yeah, I had a job. The first job out of uni, they was fraud.
That's not a job. That's a crime.
No. They like it was very fucked. But they hired me. I thought I was going to be an editor writer for a Northwest business website,
right.
Which was like the idea of business. Not that excited. I lived in the Northwest. Sure. Writing, editing, that sounds vaguely creative. Giddy up, baby. And then it turned out that I was like SEO writing for them for different clients. So like writing about boilers and stuff. But they used to joke about dyslexic people in the team going like, oh, it's a good job you're not a content writer. Could you imagine if we had and I was just like, but it is that, I don't know, like, it's just fucking, like, yeah, but you can write.
Yeah.
You know, the spelling might be wrong, but you can put the words together.
Well, exactly. And like, I've done some writing for some projects recently where I've been asked to sort of write some jokes or some sketches and stuff. And I've panicked about the spelling or the things like that, and like in this day and age, you know, things get caught by spell checker and it's not a problem most of the time. But like, but also, I talked to my agent about it, and he basically said to me like, it doesn't matter. Like if it's funny, it doesn't matter if it's spelled wrong. Like the actor doesn't care if it's not, as long as they can read what it's meant to say. I get sent scripts a lot now because I sort of get. I don't know if you've ever done a lot of these sort of self-tape things. So I probably get like 3 or 4 self-tapes sent through a week that I have to do. And I don't do all of them, but like the number of them where the scripts are so crap, like badly written, not formatted properly. Some of them don't even have like punctuation in them. And it's made me realise how little like other people bother with some of that stuff.
Do you think as well in there is that, I don't know, I'm very guilty of this. And I think it's a very... For me, it's a very ADHD thing, is that, who is it? My ADHD coach, who is great. A lot of stuff that's true of neurodivergence is like true of most people, but more so.
Sure.
That's kind of how I understand a lot of different neurodivergence experiences. Is like when somebody says, oh, I'm a bit OCD or whatever, it's like, please don't. Yeah. But also, it's like, well, yeah, because these are things that happen in every human's brain, but the difference is that it's a lot more than what you would consider a manageable level.
Yeah, it's similar with the visual impairment thing, where people, because I still have some functioning vision and I wear glasses, people assume that when I say I'm visually impaired, what I mean is that I'm a glasses wearer, and that's not the case. And, you know, I don't mean to sort of diminish anyone's experience, but when people who are glasses wearers say, oh yeah, I'm visually impaired, or I'm a bit blind, like, for the most part, I mean, maybe this is mean of me to assume, but I assume that they're not visually impaired. Someone came up to me after a gig once and said, oh yeah, I'm visually impaired as well. I only have to wear glasses when I'm driving though. And I'm like, well, if you're driving, you're not visually impaired.
But it's an interest, like the language isn't quite there in a way, is it? Because, you know, like like visually impaired is such a broad description that actually to communicate no, I would like some access beyond just having my prescription glasses,
exactly.
please.
Yeah.
Is like legal? Like, are you legally blind? Is that? Do you have?
So that's not really a thing. Like, so registered blind is the sort of
right.
The thing I think you're talking about, and there are different levels of that. So you can be registered sight impaired, or you can be registered blind. And I'm not registered blind, and I'm not yet registered sight impaired, but I'm going through the process of doing that at the moment. And it's just quite a long process because of NHS waiting lists to sort of.
They have a great
seen. So I've had all the
about,
tests done and everything, and I've had a letter that basically says that I am, but I'm so that in the NHS's eyes, I'm registered. I've met the threshold to be registered blind, but I haven't yet gone through the process with the local authority to register myself. Yeah. And it is a choice. You don't have to register to be blind, to be sight impaired. But I've met the threshold. I don't have the paperwork yet because historically I've never needed it, and I'm only really registering now because I need a disabled person's rail card because my 16 to 30 rail card has expired.
Yeah.
And suddenly I need it. But I never needed it before because I'm not claiming any benefits or anything because I'm still able to work, and I don't believe in claiming benefits where I don't need them for anything. So I never needed to be registered blind, but we're sort of going through that process at the moment.
Okay, I'm just going to scratch out my show title pitch to you of Legally Blind. Get rid of that.
Well, this is the thing, right? So is Legally Blonde a pun on the phrase legally blind?
I don't know.
Well, I think Legally Blonde, the film, I think that is meant to be a pun on the phrase legally blind.
Which is really
that's
confusing.
So mental, because that's not like a phrase people use. It's not like it's not an idiom. It's not like, if it was called The Blonde Leading the Blonde, that would have been a better film, right?
In the Kingdom of the Blonde,
because otherwise I don't know why it's called that, because it's not like, I appreciate that the film is about a blonde woman and she becomes a lawyer, right? So, I guess legally and blonde are...
the sequel is she becomes a judge and it's blonde justice. There is no connection at any point to there being... at no point do they address blindness.
It should have been called Justice is Blonde, and that's the... that would have been much better. But instead they went with Legally Blonde 2. Like a cunt would.
Whoa, swinging, Jake.
I love Legally Blonde, by the way. I should point out, it's a great film.
And if there are any remakes, Jake would love to be considered for the role of L. So, as well as doing comedy, when you were younger, you were also a magician.
I was, yeah.
Which brings us on to the main theme of this show, magic.
Yes, only 50 minutes into the record.
That's actually quite quick for me. Were you in the magic circle?
No, I wasn't. But so the magic circle is this thing that people think is like the be all and end all for magicians, right? And they think it's some kind of mark of excellence, which it sort of is, but you know how non-comedians think being at the Edinburgh Fringe is a mark of being successful?
Oh, sure.
But actually it's just sort of anyone can go, and lots of people at the Fringe are not necessarily bad, but they're very new or very amateur or whatever.
The barrier to entry is much lower than you'd expect, and more often is economic than it is quality.
Yes, and that's not necessarily an exact parallel with the magic circle. So there is the process to get into the magic circle, and I never did it, so I don't know that this is necessarily exactly 100% accurate, but this is how I understand it, is you have to go and sort of perform an audition in front of some members, and you have to perform some magic in front at a performance that's sort of like a kind of showcase type thing in front of some other magicians, and then if you do well enough, then they allow you into the circle, and there are different memberships levels and things like that, but you do have to pay a subsidy every year and all that kind of thing. And but there's no requirement. It's not a union. There's no requirement to be part of it if you want to do magic at weddings and stuff, or it's basically just a club that really only means something to other magicians, and even then it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But yeah, so I wasn't in it, but they do ask me to join every year. So I get an email.
Still.
Yeah, and I think they must do this to a lot of people. It must be based on, like, you know, a database of who's bought magic tricks from a certain website at some point in the history, or who's registered a show at a particular festival or something like that. But yeah, I get an email or a phone call or a post. Well, not a phone call, but I get an email or a postcard or something once a year from the Magic Circle being like, you could still join if you want. And I haven't really done magic not seriously for like 15 years, so it's not really something that I'm interested in. But I do, every show I do still has a magic trick in it. Every stand-up show I do, I put a magic trick in it somewhere, whether it's an out and out, I'm now going to do a magic trick, or whether it's like a bit of sort of illusion that creeps into the stage performance in some way, or what have you. It is a little sort of mark because I enjoy doing it, and like secretly harbour sort of some secret kind of.
You've not hit unsubscribe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I still get a happy birthday message every year from the Magic Forum, which is like a forum that I was on when I was a teenager.
That's very sweet. So, do you think so this show is often about using magic to try and solve people's problems, but it's a very different magic to magician magic, I think. But I guess, what is your were you drawn to magic and practicing magic as a teenager with that idea of conjuration of a cosmic impact, or was it the sleight of hand, the craft? What was it?
Impressing girls mostly.
Really? And that was magic you chose for that? All right, okay. Okay.
And there's a whole routine I did about this in my in the special that I've got on Amazon Prime, and it's I thought it was impressive because I found it impressive, so I assumed girls would find it impressive, but obviously they just think that I'm a weirdo who's spent loads of time alone in his bedroom, which is true. I started doing it because I wanted to impress people, and I care so much about people liking me, and I didn't feel like I had any other kind of redeemable quality, so I felt like I needed to I had really bad self-esteem as a child and a teenager, and I felt like I needed something to kind of, like, I don't know, hang my personality on that made me like a guy, so I was the magic guy at school who, and I made friends, or what I perceived to be friends at the time, by doing magic tricks in the yard at school or in the sixth form common room or whatever. And I think aside from a handful of people who genuinely did enjoy it and thought it was fun, who were kind of other nerdy kids that I got on with, the majority of people who I thought I was impressing probably in hindsight thought I was a dweeb, and they were kind of interested to watch it, but then made fun of me behind my back or whatever. But outside of that, I was doing it. It was my first sort of proper paid job when I was a teenager. I used to go and do it. I did it as a street performer at first. I did magic on street magic in Newcastle for money in a hat, and then I sort of got booked for a couple of weddings off the back of that, and I did some weddings and some birthday parties and things like that. And so in those circumstances, you're kind of seen as sort of a professional, and it's kind of fun and cool, and I felt that gave me a bit of self-esteem. But I mostly did it because I was trying to find something that made me sort of interesting to other people, because otherwise I thought I was, and if I look back on my teenage life, I was objectively quite interesting anyway. I was doing the other big thing in my life when I was a teenager was fencing. Before my eyesight got too bad, I did that as a sport, and that that's an interesting sport for a working class guy who went to a comprehensive school to do. And then at the same time, I was into music, and I used to dress differently to other people, but in not in a dweeb. Well, I think I thought it was dweeby at the time, and people would make fun of me. But when I look back at it, I think I looked quite cool. I used to wear sort of I wore sort of bow ties and shirts and things, but not in like a sort of Millhouse way, but more in a Doctor Who kind of way, I think.
Obviously, I know that you've witnessed magic tricks, but do you think you've ever seen like a spell or a curse or a hex or a miracle? Do you think in your life you could think of times when that's happened?
I mean, without wanting to get too sort of deep and sad,
please do.
When I was a teenager, I was quite religious and and then went through a period of losing my faith, and now have been, in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, been kind of reacquainting myself with what I don't know what my beliefs are anymore and that kind of thing, and I'm not quite sure where I stand. And I think I was sort of uber religious for my family and background and area. None of my family were like that. During that period, I was convinced that I witnessed a miracle. I was convinced that I had been spoken to directly by God, which I know sounds insane. And looking back at my mental health history that I know it now, I'm almost certain it was a hallucination, right? But it was an because I've since experienced auditory hallucinations as a result of mental health problems that I've had in the past, and I was convinced that I was praying, without going into too much detail. I had to make a choice between two things essentially that were quite important to me at the time, and I was really conflicted, and I was praying for guidance on that, and then I was 100% convinced that I heard a voice saying that you should choose this particular option, and to me, although now I know that wasn't a miracle, and I wouldn't describe it as such, and I don't really think that kind of thing exists. Even if God does exist, I don't think that's how it works, and I'm reticent to say that I think God does exist, right? But at the time, it certainly felt emotionally like that's what had happened, and then it suddenly gave me this, and I chose that path, and it was the best path in the end, and it worked out the way that I wanted it to, and so, you know, it was, and that convinced me, and I think that's part of the reason why so it took me quite a long time to kind of decode.
Well, that seems like a really good bit of evidence. That's like a real, not that you have to decode it as well. I think, like, I don't know, one of the things that I think through doing this podcast and exploring a lot of like magic and folklore and this, like, so much of magic and the sort of magic that we're going to do to try and help what you brought, is like a lot of it is very religious. A lot of it just uses a lot of like Latin from Roman Catholicism, or like older like Jewish and Kabbalistic, and I think it's Goetic. The words are important, obviously, but
course.
There's this basis in faith for it, and I think that what at least my takeaway is, like, if it's useful for you, and clearly like that helped you at a time in your life, I don't know if considering it as a hallucination or as a word from God, or I don't know. Like, I don't know how important it is necessarily to have that exact thing. Like, obviously, I think if you're having auditory hallucinations in other things that you're finding distressing and concerning and are upsetting you, then definitely, let's have a look at that. But I also think, like, I don't know. Like, I think there's something about disability as well, and there is experiencing things that you think are unusual or you think are not the norm. Yeah. And actually, like, when does that matter if it's helping you in some ways? Sure. And I think especially because we so often like push away the metaphysical stuff, which is fine. Like, and I get it, and I think it's perfectly, like, you know, we are logical people, we live in a logical world, and it makes a lot of sense to have that thought process. And I'm not at all, as I say, this saying, no, Jake, it was God, and what's more, you should think about it a lot. But I don't know. Like, it feels, because a few folks on the show have had similar, like, sort of things where they think they've witnessed stuff, and then it's like, but afterwards I realised it was this and that, and it's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
do you want to hear the other bit of magic that I've experienced?
I would love to hear the other bit of magic, please, Jake Donaldson.
So when I was 17, I went on a school trip to a ghost hunt, and so this is because I was studying psychology at A level as part of my sort of exploring my faith and all that kind of thing. I decided to study psychology and learn about belief and that kind of thing. And as part of it, we did a module on anomalistic psychology, which is what I went on to do a degree in, which is sort of psychology related to sort of paranormal stuff, but like from a science side rather than a pseudoscience sort of way. And as part of that, my teacher, who I'm pretty sure is no longer a teacher because she did things like this, booked us on a school trip. Our class went to the Lytton Phil Library in Newcastle, which is a really old building that's supposedly haunted. And we did a overnight ghost hunt but we were booked on with these other people who were real ghost believers, and we were just, sixth formers who were studying it, and we were all like messing around. And I was deep into doing my magic stuff at this point, so I thought it would be funny to impress the other kids on the thing if I kept like faking bits of like psychological phenomena using the magic stuff that I knew to try and like make them laugh or whatever. But these other real life ghost hunters who were there kept like thinking it was real and getting and they were like really scared that they were suddenly seeing genuine real examples of things that they thought, I think secretly probably thought weren't ever going to happen. And I was having a good time, and it was all funny and everything like that. And we were doing a thing with a Ouija board, and I made it spell out the name of one of the boys in the classroom and stuff like that. And I made it say it was going to kill somebody in the room, and like everyone got really scared, and I thought it was dead funny. And then they went, "Okay, Jake, do you want to go into this special room?" And you go in on your own, and you stand there in the dark for 15 minutes. And supposedly a ghost lives in there, and people have these experiences. And I went into the room and I was like, this will be rubbish, it's absolute bollocks and whatever. And I didn't see any ghost or anything like that. But then when I came out again, during the time I'd been in there, a book had fallen off one of the shelves outside, and it just like, by me closing the door too hard, and a book had fallen open and no one else had seen it, and it fell open, and I picked it up and I looked at the book, and it was open on a page, and the first line of the page said something like, you will not experience otherworldly phenomena or something like that. And I was like, fuck off, this is like it was like the most secular example of like a supernatural thing happening, where like I'd gone, this is definitely not going to happen, ghosts don't exist, I'm going to go in here, it'll be absolutely fine. I came out, and then some weird supernatural thing, a book had opened on a page that described exactly the experience that I just had about not being supernatural. It was so weird.
That's what we're saying. And what's more, you don't deserve it, actually. We are ghosts. We are ghosts. We've seen what you're doing. We think you're being very silly. We're all going to come here and we're going to be spooky. We're going to make loads of orbs float. We're going to make a statue, lights glow. But you've ruined it for everyone, and I think you should think about that, actually.
Oh, the poor ghosts, they were trying to have their own party. They were having their own school. Well, maybe that's why we didn't see any of them, because all the ghosts has gone on a school trip to our school that night.
I love that. I love that's very like that.
That's a great film.
They have a mundane world is so. Yeah, I love that. Now, you brought a few problems today. Can you tell me what those problems are that you brought?
Yeah, so I'm learning to play the bass guitar, and I wanted to. I started learning when I was a teenager, and I gave up for a really long time. I can do a little bit, but then I can't seem to find a way to get any better. That's sort of my most practical kind of problem.
Yeah, bass.
Bass is an issue. Then I've said the phrase "you're not my therapist" at least 3 times in this podcast so far. I really struggle with wanting everyone to like me, Eddie. And I would like to be more comfortable in myself and sort of less worried about what other people think. But I imagine if people have listened to this far into the podcast, they're already aware of the fact that I struggle with what people think of me. I just want everyone to like me.
Look, we've all been there, mate. So the spells that I have for you today are from a book called The Book of the Sacred Magic by Abram the Mage. Or he's also known as Abraham the Mage. I mean, the Mage comes into it. It's purportedly from the 5th century, perhaps even earlier. And then there's a number of people who have translated. It's similar to something I did in one of the first podcasts that I did with a guest. However, I didn't realise it was quite a bit more that you need to do for these things to make you like eligible to get to use the stuff that we're about to do. But based on that last conversation, I think you're already there.
All right, okay, wow.
So there's a few things that make me ineligible to do this spell, but much like a good therapist, I can give you the tools to do the work. So in order to be able to cast this spell, the first thing that you need to do is a ritual of solitude. Now, not to be hard, but it just sounds to me like you've already lived a life of solitude in some ways.
Yeah. Tick.
You must also make sure that you're not greedy.
Okay.
And when you lend money, you must do so without asking for it back at an unreasonable level of interest.
Well, look, I can solve one of those problems. I've never lent anyone any money because I don't have any money, right?
Okay, but if ever you do lend money, just make sure you're following like the Bank of England base rate, all right?
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. The greed thing, I mean, considering that one of the problems that I gave you was that I'm overweight, maybe that's an issue.
Well, I think that's gluttonous, isn't it? If we're looking at the time this was made, this is like sort of Old Testament sin
yes,
stuff.
That's true. Okay, yeah. Okay, I don't think I'm very
to be fair, just good luck. It doesn't say gluttonous anywhere on here, so carry on, I'd say.
Fine, yeah.
Are you in good health?
Yeah, apart from not being able to see.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. And you also need to be 25 to 50 years old and at a push monotheistic.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Willing to shun. Now, this is why I'm out. Willing to shun other occult and magic practices. So this is why I can be with you. I like to imagine myself as a sort of little, like, great gazoo on your shoulder here.
Yeah. Does that mean that I have to stop doing card tricks?
Ooh, I mean, to be safe, maybe. How do you feel about that?
But if it's no more card tricks, but the payoff is that I can play the bass like Mark King from level 42, then I'm happy with that.
All right, okay. Well, yeah, that's the level we're at. Okay, fine. I'll hold that in
level
mind.
42.
The other and the last two aren't that important. It's just avoiding a date and a time to plan to do it, and also not be a woman. Okay, moving on. Just a bit of misogyny right at the end of it. So somebody has gone through every bit of it already, and then at the end of it, they realise that it's just the arbitrary gender they have that has prevented them. Perfect.
Yeah, I've got like half of these things. I might as well, if it's easy apply, I'll do it.
Yeah, let's give it a go. Now, I will say the one thing that I don't think we'll be able to address is weight loss diet and stuff, because obviously, in like the 5th century, making gains like that was probably good news. It probably meant that the surroundings of your life were very comfortable. That was a good problem to have then. So sorry about that.
Fair enough.
However, the other two, people loving you and playing an instrument, you will not believe it. I have got a spell exactly for playing an instrument.
Amazing.
I'm so excited to have this for you. So, which one do you want to do first? Should we do the bass first, and then we'll go into the love and affection?
Yeah, because I feel like if I could play the bass, that might solve the love and affection thing. So.
Oh, good call. And also, I do feel like part of the reason why you need to have this 18-month thing is that you have a connection with God.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can access a guardian angel who will protect you as you harness the power of demons to do this work.
Okay.
And how you do that is through these squares. So I will send this over to you for you to be able to have a proper look at. So we're starting on the 30th chapter, which is
To cause comedies, operas, and all kinds of music and dances to appear.
So here we have these, they're like word squares. They look a little bit like Sudoku.
Okay.
And what you do is, once you've harnessed the power of your guardian angel, and you can ask for these powers that you have, you write out these word squares as talisman, and you hold on to them. Okay. So there are a few options in here. There is 1, to cause all kinds of music to be heard. Don't worry about that. 2, music and extravagant balls. Again, that feels like too much of an ask.
Yeah, and also I've already got extravagant balls.
Hello. 3,
to cause all kinds of musical instruments to be played.
That's what I want.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Multi-instrumentalist. We're not even stopping at
Well,
bass.
let me just stop you there, because I will just say, for the efficacy of the spell, maybe asking for less actually will get you more.
It's like the Arts Council.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What's your partnership? Do you have any in-kind funding? Any spiritual in-kind funding?
Yeah, I've just got that developing your spiritual practice fund.
As we speak, I am writing out these squares. So I can send you a photo of this. I'm going to do it now for the sake of us casting the spell in this space. But I think you will need to do this because I'm merely the facilitator. I am not the conduit through which this magic goes, Jake.
That is fine.
So I need you to do these things that I send to you. And then in maybe a week or so, if you can let us know how it's gone. Like if you think you've managed to break through what you're after in your bass playing, if you think that you're more confident in love and affection from people.
So, like, One of the things that I've been really struggling with is I really want to learn how to play the Seinfeld theme tune on bass.
Oh, we're all there.
So if in a week's time I can play the Seinfeld theme tune.
Yeah, that sounds like a real result. So we have our square in front of us, and we are going to place some holy letters into there. Now, I'm going to give you those letters that we pop in. But this is it's an old Hebrew word, and I appreciate as I spell it out, it might be just as a warning to listeners and to you, Jake. Look, you'll see. So you put the letters in Nigigin. It's an old Hebrew word. Jake, please. It's an old Hebrew word for music. Fucking hell! I wish I'd read this before we started recording. So there's a note below that explains that the word Nigigin is Hebrew for a musical instrument. Probably. Nothing like putting probably in a translation to really instill confidence there. But look, that square is for you to use and let us know. Hold it on your instrument and let us know if it improves when you play it.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to find out if that works.
Excellent. So on to every kind of love and affection, which is chapter 19. So there's a few options for you here that I'll just run through, Jake. There's the first one, which is to get the love of your wife or husband, which you'd kind of hope you got beforehand, or 2, which is for a special type of love. 3, to be loved by a relation. I don't think we need to dwell on what that implies. 4, to get the love of a maiden. And 5, to win the love of a judge.
I feel like that one and the one where they were looking for affection from someone in their family they're probably the same one.
Judge Reinhold.
6, to make oneself beloved by a married person. 7, to make one loved by a widow. 8, by a girl already promised to be married.
It does feel like a top 10, doesn't it?
9, by a maiden in general.
So we've got a real variety of maiden. We've got particular, a special, and of course general, just at the end to cover all.
10, a special prince. 11, a special king. 12, to obtain the friendship of a particular person. 13, to have that of a great man.
There is a lot of these.
14, to be beloved by a woman.
At this point, it does kind of feel like I am reading out like a menu of food here.
15, to make oneself beloved by ecclesiastic. 16, to make one beloved by master. 17, to make one beloved by mistress. 18, beloved by infidels.
Don't know if that's an option for you.
Okay, 19, this is a big one. So this is loved by the Pope, Emperor, or by a king.
Which, I mean, king is covered before, but fine, fair enough. And lastly, the one we're going to do, which is 20...
adulteries in general.
So I did wonder, I thought you had 2 options here. I think there's the to obtain the friendship of some particular person, because I think it's you want people to like you. It's not necessarily love. I don't know if you want to get tied down that much.
But it's not a specific person that I'm looking at, though. It's everyone.
That's a very good point. It's all right. So I guess it's adultery. Get rid of...
I've had the same thoughts so many times.
You've heard it here first. Jake Donaldson, professional adulterer.
I should just say I am faithful.
Yeah, of course. So we have this square, and this is a 5 by 5 square, and we're going to put the letters Catan in.
Catan.
Because a lot of these friends, they're going to be settling. I'm so sorry.
No, that is strong work, Eddie.
Thanks, mate. So Catan also, Catan translates actually to adhere closely. So, keep your friends close, but not closer, because that's an enemy. What you want to do is get your 5 squares, which you can do in your time, and then you write Catan on them, and then you hold that to yourself. Now, what it does say for this to work really effectively is that you can carry the symbol with you and just touch somebody with it. If you can on bare skin, that helps make it work. So if there is anyone that you haven't met before and you want to test it out, if you could
post it to them?
No, when you see them, try and get it on their skin, try and give them a touch.
Okay. Right, okay.
I know,
so sort of brush it.
If you go to a gig or something, maybe, I don't know, you could put it in your hand and shake their hand.
Well, maybe what I do is I get it tattooed on the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
And then every time I shake hands with somebody, I'm putting the spell on them. Yeah, and then that means that everyone I shake hands with, I will be making friends with.
I think this is a goer. I think this is a real goer. Jake,
Yeah.
But maybe test it out with a bit of paper first before you really go boots deep on the tattoo.
Yeah, because if it goes, if it turns out that this spell doesn't work and actually makes people like want to kill me, then
God, yeah, I hadn't thought of it not working like that. I just thought of you turning into like a King Midas of Friends.
The man with the friendly touch.
No, that sounds creepy as fuck.
Everyone I touch becomes my friend.
And also in this job, you do end up having to shake hands with like every comedian every MC who brings you on stage, or if you're the MC, every comedian you bring on stage, and some of them I don't want to be friends with.
But what a turn if it's like, they act like they don't like you, and then they welcome you on stage, you shake their hand, and you see a change in their face, like, friend? Friend?
Yeah. Now will you book me for your gig?
So, Jake, those are your talisman. You must now write them out as I have shown you to and try those spells out. And in about a week or so, send us a voice note. Let us know how you've got on with it. Thank you very much for joining me. Is there anything that you want to let the listeners know that you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at the Edinburgh Festival again this year, 2025. I'm doing a work in progress of my new show. It's called Jake Donaldson is the Fifth Weezer.
Which is incredible. An incredible title.
Thank you. The show is about me growing up in the 2000s and being into that kind of music, but it's also generally a show about what it's like to be someone going into their 30s in the early 2020s and how life has changed for people who are young now versus when we were young. But it's also just generally about music and culture that I was interested in when I was a teenager, and stories from that kind of part of my life. And I'm really excited to do it it's a work in progress at the Fringe. It's on at 11:55 in the morning every day at the City Cafe. I'm doing it every day apart from the 14th, because on the 14th I'm fucking off to Yorkshire to see the Smashing Pumpkins live.
Nice.
Then I'm coming back again.
Nice.
But yes. That please, that would be lovely.
I hope you won't be feeling some melancholy and the infinite sadness like the audiences will when they miss your show on the 14th.
I hope there won't be 0 people in the audience.
Oh boy, you better watch out in Edinburgh. What have it been, a Fringe festival, an arts festival? Somebody might bring a hash pie.
Maybe Buddy Holly will come.
Wow, but you know what they say about summer, it gets all
Say it ain't so.
It is. Look, we need to stop this now. Jake, thank you so much for joining me, and I release you into this spooky midnight library.
Cool. Love you, mate.
You too, Jake. Farewell.
Bye.
Cool. Let's just close the door on that meeting room now. Great. Bye, Jake. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks so much to Jake for joining me on the show. A lovely chat, a lovely time to catch up, and do go see his show if you're at the Edinburgh Fringe. That's the Fifth Weezer. That's at 11:55 at City Cafe. Free Fringe, so it's free. If you want to donate at the end, you're welcome to. But Jake very kindly has sent me now a voice note to see whether his bass playing got any better, and see if he did manage to convince everybody in the world that he wanted to like him. So let's have a listen.
Hello, Eddie. This is my update for the podcast to let you know whether or not the spells have worked. So, first of all, thank you very much for the spells. I have applied the spells, and I've been taking very careful note of whether or not they have had any effect. First thing to say, I haven't made any enemies. So, technically, we think that the one that we did, that is helping me to make more friends and be more liked and stuff like that. It's certainly not having the opposite effect. So I feel at least I'm sort of net positive on the enemies situation. Who's to say if I've made any new friends? You and I, in the interim period, Eddie, attended a wedding of a friend, and I felt like I became good friends with some of the people who were at the wedding. I feel like we met strangers at the table when we were at the wedding, and as a part of that, none of them hated me, and so maybe that did work. Maybe the spell has worked in that situation. The big one for me is the musical instrument spell, because you may remember that during the podcast I mentioned that I really wanted to be able to play the Seinfeld theme tune, and we'll see. Well, I've sent you a video clip along with this voice note, so I'll leave you to see whether or not you feel like the spell has worked in that instance. Thank you, bye.
Whoa! He was slapping the bass. That's really good. I mean, you might want to check out the tab he's using, because it does sound like one note's off, but that's not anything to do with the playing. That's more just the transcription that he's using. So, well done, Jake. That's amazing. I think that is... I think the friend thing, that was ambitious. We knew that. But the musical instrument, that's clearly a success. And clearly the magic helped in some way. So here we go. Lovely, well done, Jake, and thank you again for coming on. Follow him at Donaldson Comedy. See his show at 11:55 at the Free Fringe at City Cafe throughout August. And please do subscribe to the podcast.
You are plugging a podcast in the library.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Good.
What?
It's important. You should be proud of the things that you make.
Oh, okay, thanks very much.
No problem. Carry on.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need any more guests?
Sorry, what?
You after more guests?
Maybe. I'm just trying to end this podcast here, actually. Sorry, we could talk about this another... Maybe?
No, that's fine. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay, no worries. So please do like and subscribe and share the podcast. You can follow Jake at Donaldson Comedy on most of the social media places that he chooses to be on. And you can follow me at EDYHURST Hurst, and that's also where news on the podcast and everything comes up. Please do check out the tour. It's in the description below. And look at tickets for Roxy Downstairs, 2:20 p.m. for Eddie Hurst's Wonderfull Discoverie of Witches in the Countie himself. On the next episode of I Pod a Spell on You, we have the comedian Katie Mitchell, who I'm hoping that it's going to come out next week, but I just want to set the expectation that potentially there might be a little break in there as I am about to start the Fringe run. But fingers crossed, everything will be all according to plan, and we shall help Katie with some of her spells. So, in the meantime, thank you very much, guys. I will see you later. Bye-bye!
Mate, that was a great goodbye. Well done.